The blackout hit downtown Toronto without warning, turning a busy evening into a sudden hush. 1 second, the cafe was glowing with warm lights and low music. The next, everything went dark. People gasped. Someone laughed nervously. Outside, rain slammed against the windows, heavy and sharp. Like the sky had finally lost patience. Ethan Cole froze with his phone in his hand. No signal, no light. Just the sound of rain and unfamiliar voices. He wasn't supposed to be here long. He had planned to grab coffee, answer a few emails, and head back to his hotel. That was how his life usually worked, planned, controlled. Safe. Candles appeared one by one as the cafe staff moved quickly, their faces lit from below. Shadows stretched across the walls. The room felt smaller, closer. Conversation slowed, then softened. Strangers started talking because there was nothing else to do. Ethan sat near the window, staring out at the street. Cars crawled by with headlights, cutting through rain. His reflection stared back at him, tired and thoughtful. At 36, he had everything he was supposed to want. A steady job in Boston. A clean apartment. A past relationship that had ended quietly, without shouting or blame. People told him he was doing well. He never corrected them. Across the room, a woman laughed. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was calm, warm, real. Ethan looked without thinking. She sat at a small table with two strangers. Her posture relaxed, hands wrapped around a mug. Her dark coat was folded neatly beside her. A few loose strands of hair framed her face, still damp from the rain. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, the others leaned in. Her name was Nora Whitman. Nora hadn't planned to stop at the cafe either. She had just finished a long shift and wanted a quiet walk home. Then the rain started, sudden and cold, and the cafe lights had looked like shelter. She stepped inside to escape the storm, not knowing she was stepping into a moment that would stay with her. She felt different tonight. Not sad, not happy, just open in a way she usually avoided. Moving back to Toronto had been the right choice, but it had stirred old feelings, old memories. She was learning how to stand still again. When the power went out, Nora didn't panic. She felt a strange relief. No screens, no noise, just people being present. She laughed at a small joke someone made. And that was when she noticed the man by the window watching her. Their eyes met. It wasn't dramatic. No spark, no rush. Just a quiet recognition, like noticing a familiar song playing softly in another room. Ethan looked away first, his chest tightening for reasons he didn't understand. Minutes passed. The storm continued. The cafe owner announced they would stay open until the power returned. No one complained. No one left. Ethan stood, more restless than brave, and walked toward Nora's table. He didn't rehearse his words. He didn't have time. "Do you mind if I sit?" he asked, pointing to the empty chair. Nora studied him. His voice was calm but careful. His eyes held something honest and unsure. She nodded. "Go ahead." They didn't introduce themselves right away. They talked about the blackout, the rain, how strange it felt to slow down. Ethan mentioned he was visiting from Boston for work. Nora said she lived nearby. Their words were simple, but something deeper moved between them. When they finally shared names, it felt like crossing a line neither wanted to name. Ethan told her about his job, how he traveled often, how hotels all felt the same after a while. Nora told him about returning home, about how familiar streets could feel new after time away. She didn't talk about the relationship she had left behind. He didn't talk about the one he had never fully fought for. They didn't need to. The candles burned lower. Rain softened to a steady rhythm. Around them, other conversations faded into the background. Ethan noticed the way Nora listened, really listened, as if every word mattered. Nora noticed the pauses Ethan took before speaking, like he was choosing honesty over ease. "I don't usually talk to strangers," Nora said with a small smile. "Me neither," Ethan replied. "But tonight feels different." She nodded, understanding without asking why. The lights flickered back on suddenly, bright and unforgiving. People cheered. Phones lit up. The spell broke. Reality returned quickly. Nora checked her phone. A message sat unread at the top of her screen. A familiar name. A familiar pull. She locked the screen without opening it. Ethan stood, feeling the moments slip away. "I should head out," he said. "Yes," Nora replied. Then, after a pause, "You probably should." Neither moved right away. Ethan pulled out his phone. "Can I?" He stopped, then continued. "Can I text you sometime?" Nora hesitated just long enough to be honest with herself. Then she nodded and shared her number. Outside. The rain had eased. The air smelled fresh, clean, like something had been washed away. Ethan walked beside Nora for half a block before they stopped. "This was unexpected," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "It was." They didn't hug. They didn't promise anything. They smiled, turned, and walked in opposite directions. Ethan felt lighter and heavier at the same time. A question formed in his mind, one he had avoided for years. What if careful wasn't enough? Behind him, Nora slowed her steps and looked back once. She told herself this was just a moment, a pause in the middle of a long story. But deep down, she knew better. Some meetings don't end when people walk away. They wait. The first text came in like a small shock, simple, casual, but it hit Ethan harder than he expected. "Did you get home okay?" He stared at it for a moment, then smiled, almost embarrassed by how much relief he felt. The storm had ended, but the feeling it left behind stayed. He typed back quickly. "Yeah, I did. The rain was crazy. He didn't know why he was writing, but he knew he wanted to. Nora saw the message while she was making tea in her apartment. She had been trying to act normal, to move on, to keep her life steady, but Ethan's text felt like a door opening. She answered, "I'm fine. The cafe was the only place that felt safe tonight." She didn't mention the message she'd ignored earlier, the one from someone who still called her regularly. She didn't mention how she had been pretending to be okay. They started texting more often. At first it was small talk, work, weather, the little things that made them feel connected without getting too close. Then the messages became longer, more personal. Ethan shared stories about Boston, about how traveling made him feel both alive and alone. Nora talked about Toronto, about returning home after being away for years, about how she was trying to find her own path again. Neither of them said what they really felt, but it didn't matter. The space between their words filled with something. Stronger. Weeks passed. Ethan's work brought him to Toronto again. When he called Nora, she felt a nervous excitement she hadn't felt in years. She agreed to meet him, and this time it wasn't because of a storm. It was because she wanted to see him. The cafe felt different now. It wasn't a shelter anymore. It was a place where something had started. They met at a bookstore first, the one with uneven floors and stacks of old books. Ethan loved the way Nora moved between shelves, like she was searching for something she couldn't name. He watched her pick up a worn novel, read a few lines, then set it down gently as if it mattered. He felt something in his chest tightened, like he wanted to protect her, but he wasn't sure why. They walked outside afterward, the air crisp and clean. Ethan suggested grabbing lunch. Nora agreed. They talked about everything and nothing. It was easy, natural, like they had known each other longer than they had. But the unspoken part remained, the part that made their smiles feel both real and fragile. Later that night, they sat on a park bench as the sun went down. Leaves rustled around them. Nora's voice was quiet. "Do you ever feel like you're always stopping yourself from going too far?" she asked. Ethan looked at her. He knew she wasn't talking about the park. "Yes," he said. "I thought it was just me being careful." Nora shook her head. "I used to think it was being strong." They sat in silence, letting the truth hang between them. Ethan didn't know how to say the words he wanted to say. Nora didn't know how to ask for what she wanted. They both knew the truth. They were both scared of wanting too much. Ethan had a job offer waiting in Boston, a promotion that would change everything. It was the kind of opportunity he had worked for, the kind he was supposed to take. But now, with Nora in his life, it felt like choosing a future he wasn't sure he wanted. Nora had someone back home who still reached out. A person who fit into her life the way things were supposed to fit. Someone safe, someone predictable. Someone who didn't ask too many questions. Ethan and Nora were both standing at a crossroads. One night they met again, and the tension was obvious. They sat at a small table in a quiet restaurant. The music was soft, the lights dim. Ethan looked at Nora and saw the way she kept glancing at her phone, as if she expected someone else to appear. "I don't want to hurt anyone," Nora said suddenly. Ethan's heart sank. "Neither do I," he replied. "But I don't think avoiding pain is the same as choosing what's right." Nora's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. She wiped her face quickly, as if she was trying to control her own emotions. "I don't know if I'm allowed to want more," she whispered. Ethan reached across the table, but he stopped himself before touching her hand. "It wasn't the right moment. Not yet. You are," he said softly. "You deserve it." Nora looked away. She didn't know if she could believe him. Didn't know if she could believe herself. The next day, Ethan went back to Boston. The distance felt heavier than it should. He kept replaying their conversations in his head, trying to find the moment when things had changed. He realized he was scared of being vulnerable, scared of being wrong, scared of losing what he had built. Nora tried to keep herself busy. She went to work, spent time with her family, met friends. But every time her phone buzzed, she hoped it was Ethan. She kept the messages open, reading them again and again. She told herself she was being silly. She told herself she was fine, but she wasn't. One night, she opened the unread message she had ignored the night of the storm. It was from the person who still called her regularly. The message was simple. "When are we going to talk?" Nora stared at it for a long time. She realized she had been avoiding the truth. She had been living in the safe space between two lives, afraid to choose. She had been holding on to something that wasn't making her happy just because it was familiar. She typed a reply. Not cruel, not harsh, but honest. She didn't explain everything. She didn't apologize for her feelings. She simply said she needed time and space. When she sent it, she felt a weight lift from her chest. Tears fell, but this time they felt like relief instead of pain. Ethan, in Boston, received a message from Nora a few days later. It was short, but it felt like a door opening. "I think I need to be honest with myself. I'm not sure what the future looks like, but I don't want to keep living in between." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. He realized he had been doing the same thing. He had been living in between what he wanted and what he thought he should want. He made a decision that surprised him. He turned down the promotion. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't announce it to anyone. He didn't even tell his boss right away. But he knew it was the right choice. Not because it was easy, but because it felt real. When he finally told Nora, he did it with a calm voice. "I turned it down," he said. "I don't want to keep living like I'm only half alive." Nora didn't know what to say. She felt a rush of emotion, fear, hope, relief, and love all mixed together. They met again at the same cafe where it all began. The lights were warm. The air smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Ethan sat across from Nora, and for the first time, he didn't feel like he was holding back. Nora looked at him and smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "I thought I was supposed to be satisfied with one good thing," she said, "but I don't think one was ever enough." Ethan nodded. "I know," he replied. "I think we both knew it." They didn't promise forever. They didn't rush into anything. They simply sat together, letting the moment be what it was. They didn't need more than that. But they both knew something important now. One was never enough when it meant denying what your heart truly wanted. And for the first time, they were ready to choose what felt real. The city moved outside. The world kept going. Inside, two people finally allowed themselves to feel. And that was enough to start.